Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Mr. C here from the 850, and you are watching and paying attention to another episode of 2100. We're always talking about what's coming up in the future, what's coming up that we need to pay attention to and operate by. As you know, this is a podcast of Bantu Cola, and our mission is to be a platform dedicated to the future of a prosperous Black Pensacola, really Northwest Florida, from Pensacola to Panama up to the year 2100. And that means we are focused on our children's children. Children, do you hear what I'm saying? Right? We need to get that 100-year plan together for Northwest Florida. We need our Black agenda together for Northwest Florida. And without further ado, in order to help us think through some of these things, it's Mr. Jamil Davis. Welcome to the 2100 podcast. How you doing, boss?
Man, I'm good. How about yourself?
Man, life is great. I can't complain about too much of nothing right now.
Same here.
I mean, I'm COVID free, right? I've had it. I've survived it, right? My family is surviving. I know everybody isn't doing the same, but we just, we got to recognize we got to stay safe in these streets. We got to move smartly, but we got to build, right? At the same time, we cannot lose ground as we move forward year after year, day after day, month after month. So that's why it was so important. I ran across Brother Davis last weekend at the pop-up shop sponsored by Queen Shami Boutique, and it was an awesome event. So if you didn't get to go out and shop Black, shop local, I'm sorry. There are some other pop-up shops coming up. You can always go to bantucola.com. There's a full list of Black businesses there. Go spend your money with a Black business. But with that being said, we're here to talk about a whole bunch of things that's happening in the politics arena, that's happening in the business arena, things you need to be mindful of, things you need to be purposely thinking through. So, Jamil, what's going on, man?
Man, so as everybody knows, we just came out of and I feel like we still in it, an election that was like eventful to say the least. That's the word I'm gonna use today. Eventful. But the work that I do with an incredible organization known as Black Voters Matter. We operate in 12, 13 states across the country. Majority of the states that we operate in is, of course, down here in the South. And the work that I did with them here in North Florida put us in a place where, we didn't really get the results that we wanted on the presidential front. Mm-hmm. But I feel like that we got the results that we needed as far as building Black political power, especially building Black political power here in the Panhandle.
That's a hashtag for y'all.
Yes, absolutely. Building Black political power. But building it here in the Panhandle. And so I'm now starting to see that the seeds for building that power, them seeds already been planted. Like they was planted well before this 2020 election. Mm-hmm. I think those seeds are starting to be watered and cultivated now because of this particular election. And so, you hit me on the horn, and you was like, hey, come through, talk to you about a lot of the things that was going on. Not only me working for Black Voters Matter, but also me working with Black Futures Lab, which is an organization started by Alicia Garza. People may remember Alicia Garza is one of the 3 co-founders of Black Lives Matter. And
shout out to Alicia.
And so she and her organization, they did a thing called the Black Futures Lab / Black to the Future Action Fund Policy Institute. Black to the Future Action Fund is like their C4 C4 policy on a Black Futures Lab. And
Mm-hmm.
so what they did was they literally recruited 41 organizers from around the country in various states in the country. And for 20 weeks, which I actually just finished I finished the last class this past week. Actually this week was my last class. And for 20 weeks, they taught us they taught us how to write policy, present policy, and enact policy on whatever level of government you wanted to do it on, whether it be a local city government, state, or federal government. And so,
wow.
You're actually the first. Shout out to Ben Tucola 2100. You're actually the first media platform, so to speak, where I get to let people know what my policy platform was that I was working on, and that I'm still working on for with Black Futures Lab, and just working on in general here in the state. It's a state-based campaign, and it's a state-based grassroots campaign that's built around banning the box, not just for jobs, but also for housing.
Bet. So give me some more details about Ban the Box, right? Because if we're gonna put this out there for everybody, right? This is where you get your news from. This is where you come first, right? You get the scoops here, right? Tell me, what does Ban the Box actually mean? What does that deal with?
So
I know me and you have had a conversation, but I want to make sure everybody in the audience understands what that means.
So Ban the Box is an initiative. Give me just a second. I also got to be daddy. I also have to be daddy today. But so Ban the Box is an initiative that is 23 states across the country.
Mm-hmm.
No, take that back. 15 states across the country, 26 cities across the country have instituted Ban the Box. And basically what that is that box on the application that we all know and love, that asks you, have you been convicted of a felony? And have been convicted of felony? Yes, no, and you check that box, and it puts you in a place where you're automatically striked out.
Yeah, people just throw you away right off of the box just because you got that box checked.
Yeah. So with the Ban the Box initiative, it's not so much that you won't be eliminated from employment because of your felony conviction, but your felony conviction won't put you out of the running of being employed by a particular company, because that box is no longer on the application. And so basically what they do is they go through any employer, they'll go through the interview process with you. And what happens is that in them going through the interview process with you, they can still do a background check to find out, hey, is this particular person, do they have like any type of charges or anything? But they've already went through the interview process. And so they can still determine whether or not they want to hire you based on your merit, and not your
past. Yeah,
so,
yeah. Because so many people are hampered simply because of that, right? It puts, like, you're still being convicted of something that you have walked away from. You've done whatever you've done. Okay, great, right? Everybody's learned at a different state at a different time, but you've walked away from that, and now you're moving back into being a great American citizen, right? For lack of a better word, right? You're moving towards employment. You're moving towards taking care of your family, and now an employer has to make a decision, almost a premeditated decision, not even based on your skill set, but whether or not you've checked this box or not. And so Absolutely. By removing that box, it takes power away from the employer to decide your fate before they even have tried you. more or less, right? Before they've even looked at you, more or less, at least bringing you in for the interview to understand how you can articulate the job, why you are the best person for the job.
Yeah.
That's good.
And so, on the flip side of that, along with housing, along with jobs, you can be eliminated from gaining actual housing because of felony convictions. There are particular states, Florida being one of them, where because of the fact that you got a felony conviction, if we'll just use this for an example, like say you came out and your parents they got Section 8 housing or they have affordable housing, they can't put you down on the application stating that you live in the house with them, because if they put you down, they could possibly lose their housing because you have a felony.
Wow.
Or they can't even have you live in the house because you have a felony conviction, and it could quite possibly eliminate them from being able to still stay in their affordable or Section 8 housing.
Wow.
And even if you come out and, say like you come out and then you do the rest of your time at like a halfway house, and the requirement in the halfway house is, hey, after you done, we need for you to have like a solid address that you can go back to, and you just don't have any family or anybody here in the state. You can't file an application for Section 8 or affordable housing because of that conviction. And so that's something else that I thought about, because that puts a lot of people, that puts a lot of returning citizens back into that high recidivism rate. Because
that's the key word.
Because of the fact they don't have anywhere to go back to. And so, as we all know, here in the state of Florida, the majority of the prisons here in the state of Florida, all but 3 or 4 prisons in the state of Florida are privately owned. And
really?
And the corporation that owns most of the prisons in the state of Florida is Geo Group. Now, Geo Group, their main headquarters is literally down in Homestead. It's their building. It's their corporate building, and right next to the corporate building is the ICE detention center that they own.
Wow.
So that's the thing. This big business for them.
Because it's good for them to keep these laws in place like this, because they want the recidivism rate to be high. Right. They want you to not have a place to go back and recover, because that requires that makes it easier for you to stay involved with negative activity, right? Or puts you or those who would take care of you to help you get on your feet to lose out on a lot.
Absolutely.
Right? And so that they want that to stay on the books, because that's a for-profit business, is what you're telling me, right? And we all know that with private prisons. I didn't realize that almost all but like 3 prisons in the state are privately owned.
Horrible
to begin with.
I might have my numbers skewed, but I know for a fact that 85 to 90% of the prisons that are in the state of Florida, like state prisons in the state of Florida, are owned by Geo Group.
Gotcha.
They're all owned by Geo Group, and Geo Group even owns a couple of the juvenile detention facilities here in the state of Florida as well. So like everything privatized when it comes to the legal system in the state of Florida, everything is dang near privatized. And so right now, what we're trying to do with this ban the box situation is we're trying to limit, especially when it comes to Black and brown people, we're trying to limit the number of people that is going to get incarcerated and go back into the prison system because of the fact that they don't even have a simple house, simple dwelling to go back to once they come out of prison. And then, of course, limiting the number of people who may violate their probation and go back to prison because of the fact that they don't have a job and they can't get a job because of that box on the employment application. And so we're looking at it being a grassroots campaign for all of 2001, which will also
21.
culminate 2021. Thank you, which will also culminate in us getting enough signatures to petition the state to have it placed on the ballot as a ballot initiative amendment for the 2022 election.
Gotcha.
So that's what we're doing, and I'm very excited about how we're going to have this move here in the state and the plans that are already set in motion to make this a worthwhile campaign. Make this a worthwhile campaign and make this something that not only the state of Florida can be proud of, but more importantly, the Panhandle can be proud of, because this is a situation for me. This is a situation for me where I'm from here. When it comes to Florida, I'm from the Panhandle, and so I'm really, really, really gung ho about making sure that political organizations and grassroots organizations know and understand that y'all got to start looking at us. Y'all got to start looking at Northwest Florida. Y'all got to start looking at the Panhandle as an actual viable source for political power, and not just political power, but Black political power here in the state. So
yeah, that's good, man. That's good. So how is that going to? So you talked about the initiative is ramping up in the 2021 year, right? And then the goal is to have it on the ballot for the 2022 voting season, right, in November of 2022. What does that process look like in Northwest Florida that needs to get done right now? So you're part of a team of people who is working on that, and that's across the Panhandle from what, Pensacola to Panama,
Pensacola to Bay County.
Pensacola to Bay County. Okay, great,
and
great.
Everything in every Escambia County, the Bay County, and everything in between. So I mean, for me, what that looks like is research, polling, building a website, getting video testimonials of people who are impacted citizens that would be impacted by something such as this box being banned for both jobs and housing. Getting the data to see how many people in the state, that this affects, seeing how many people in the state that once this gets eliminated, what would this cost, getting the data of what would this cost the state as far as funds, and also what this would bring the state as far as lowering Black unemployment and unemployment in general by not having this box. Also getting the data of how many other states, that's across the country that's already doing ban the box, how many people have been employed since the box has been eliminated in their area. And of course, with this being a Black Futures Lab initiative, how many Black people have been employed, and how has this initiative affected Black people in the other states across the country. So these are things that we got to sit and just really think about and ponder as we go into 2021, and make sure that this is something that we can actually tangibly win in this state.
Gotcha. So is there anything you want to drop to the people out there about how to get in contact with you to help volunteer, help you do that research and help you build that up?
Of course, I'm on Instagram at Jamal still, because I still use the rapper dude Instagram. I ain't trying to make like 2-3 Instagrams for like different things that I do, because this all fall under me. So at Jamal Still, JamalSteele. Facebook is my regular name, Jamil Davis. Find me on Facebook, hit me in the DM, or you can actually email me at Jamil at Black Voters Matter Fund FUND.org. Get in contact with me in any of those particular type of ways, and we can link up and we can connect and make some things happen. Especially if you're returning citizens and impacted citizens that'll be impacted by Ban the Box being a thing in the state of Florida. We want to get your stories, because I feel like the best way to have people relate, and not even just your normal regular everyday citizens, but also legislators, because like we gotta, even after it passed, we gotta convince them that how the amendment was stated on the ballot, that's how it is. Don't change it. Don't go in 2023 and pull the same stuff that y'all did for the Amendment 4 voters restoration amendment. Don't do that. Like, how the amendment is,
leave it alone.
That's how it need to be. And also, people who have foundations, grassroots donors, pay attention to those emails and social media things that I gave out. Because here's the thing: along with signatures for the petition to get it on the ballot, we need bread, and it costs a lot to get an amendment placed on the ballot in any of these elections. So that's another thing that which we focusing on as well, trying to figure out where we're gonna get that money from to have it placed on the ballot, because ballot initiatives, they're expensive. So but yeah, in any of those areas, feel free to email me or hit me up on social media.
Bet. All right, everyone, we'll be right back with more from Jamil Davis and all the things that are going on in the politics world right here on 2100 and Bantu Cola. We'll be right back. Peace. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your boy, Mr. C, here from the 850, and you're back in the lab with us at 2100. This is a show produced by BantuCola.com, and our goal here is to bring you everything Black-centric for Northwest Florida, from Pensacola to Panama. My guest today with us is Mr. Jamil Davis, a.k.a. Jamal Steele, the poet, the author, the activist. What's going on, sir?
I feel like I literally do everything right now, instead of except for rest. That's something I need to do, and this the holiday season. I should be, but yeah, right. No,
no rest for the weary, right?
At all. No rest for the weary, and definitely no rest for the wickedness that's going on out here.
Exactly. So, man, you were telling me about the Ban the Box initiative, and we kind of went through that whole segment there. And so I know as we were kind of talking offline at the pop-up shop, there were a whole bunch of things that were happening. So just keep that ball flowing, man, and kind of bring us what else is going on or in our area, around the state, with some initiatives. What's some things going on, man? Keep us in the loop. Keep the people in the loop.
So I feel like one of the reasons that we wanted to do Ban the Box as a ballot initiative, as opposed to um, finding a state house rep or state senator to introduce it as a bill next year during legislative session. So with us as organizers here in the state of Florida, I think our singular focus right now, as far as something to organize and galvanize people around, is this particular bill. I like to call it the DeSantis Protection Act. But I'm actually about to pull it up to give like a real like understanding of what it is that we're dealing with. So the actual official name of the bill is the Combating Violence, Disorder, and Looting and Law Enforcement Protection Act. So Governor DeSantis introduced it around like September. I want to say like the 25th, 26th of September. And it's a bill that before the election happened, he was going to have like a special legislative session a week after the election to try to push this bill through into law. Because he already knew, like, I got enough support around it, this, that, and the third, let's make this happen. Trump lost. So let's put that out there. As much as he don't want y'all to believe it, Trump lost. And so since Trump lost, he was like, well, let me take a break and not do this and wait until legislative session actually starts next year. And I think that's around like February or March. I want to say March. March of next year. And so the law basically states things such as new criminal offenses to combat rioting, looting, and violence. So prohibition on violent or disorderly assemblies. It'll be considered a third-degree felony when 7 or more people are involved in an assembly and causes damage to property or injury to other persons. So that would now be considered a third-degree felony.
So hold on. Let me stop right there. So you're saying if, for instance, we're downtown and we're protesting at the bridge, right, like we did this year, and there's 7 or more people there, and some knuckleheads show up and they break in a car, they could technically charge everyone around with a third-degree felony simply because someone showed up and instigator. Anybody, someone who did it on purpose to cause the rest of the people who were doing things correctly to be caught up by the law is what you're telling me.
Absolutely. So that's one part of it. The next part is prohibition on obstructing roadways. Third-degree felony to obstruct traffic during an unpermitted protest, demonstration, or violent or disorderly assembly. The drivers would not be held liable for injury or death caused if fleeing for safety from a mob. So let's use this as an example. So we was doing all of the protests and demonstrations down at Graffiti Bridge. Shout out to Kyle Cole, Kyle Project. Shout out to Hell, Pensacola Dream Defenders, Squad Up. Shout out to all the organizations that was involved in those demonstrations and protests. So we decided, hey, we're not just gonna keep this situation at Graffiti Bridge. We walked from Graffiti Bridge to Chappie James Bridge, and we blocked Chappie James Bridge. I don't know if anybody remember that day that it happened. Blocked Chappie James Bridge, blocked the bridge for like a good 35-40 minutes. During the time that the bridge was being blocked, there was a dude who decided that he was going to drive through the blockade, and it was a guy. He ended up hopping up on the car to prevent any more injury, any further bad injury from him getting hit.
Right.
If this bill was in
because
law,
the driver was being reckless, pushing into the crowd almost.
So if this bill was law, the driver wouldn't have been held liable for his actions. Us who decided to block the bridge, we would all be charged with a third-degree felony for blocking the bridge. So prohibition on destroying or toppling monuments. So as we all know, there are other states and other cities that have had Confederate monuments that people was like, yo, like, we're not gonna wait for the city to bring the monument down. We just gonna bring it down ourselves.
Yeah. We done with it.
Thankfully, Pensacola was a little bit smart this year. And one of the things that happened this year was they actually brought the Confederate monument down in what was formerly known as Lee Square, now known as Florida
Square. Yeah. Shout out to Pensacola City Council. Shout out to the mayor. Good job.
Yeah, that part, legit. Grover be cool sometimes. So if we decided that we actually was going to bring the monument down and this bill was law, it would be a second-degree felony to destroy public property during a violent or disorderly assembly. So it would basically be a second-degree felony if we decided that we wanted to bring that Confederate monument down in the middle of Florida Square in Pensacola.
Interesting. So wouldn't it be, so he wanted to be, so he's bringing special charges, right? Because it's already illegal to destroy public property. And so he's trying to add on to that, above and beyond what the law actually already is.
Because a lot of these things that I'm reading off now, normally now, as of now, most of this stuff would be misdemeanors.
Gotcha.
Most of this stuff would be misdemeanors, especially if you're not the person who actively did it, but it happened at your event and you got to take responsibility for it. Most of the stuff would be misdemeanors. Now you're trying to like just flat out, yo, nah, second-degree felony, third-degree felony, first-degree misdemeanor. Prohibition on harassment in public accommodations, first-degree misdemeanor for a participant in a violent or disorderly assembly to harass or intimidate a person at a public accommodation, such as a restaurant. So if we're doing a protest and we're doing a march and we just so happen to go through like an area, like say for downtown, like, you know, downtown, especially over by Plaza Ferdinand, there's like a lot of outside restaurants. And we like to like walk through that because it's right there on the sidewalk. If somebody feel like they being intimidated while we walking through, they can call the police and tell the police that, yo, like I felt threatened for my life, and that would be considered a first-degree misdemeanor. Also, one of the things that just got added on to this bill is if something like that was to happen, the intimidation factor or my life feel threatened, and a person shoots a protester. And whether they kill the person or not, they shoot the protester. They can use stand your ground defense. They can use stand your ground defense, and they can get off.
All right, so let me back this up. Let me back up for 1 second. So we're saying that we could be marching legally in a public space, protesting, exercising our First Amendment rights. And because someone felt threatened by the conversation that was happening, or the fact that there was a whole bunch of people who were marching for whatever reason, they can then now have you arrested because they felt intimidated. And so now this law takes intimidation and give it more power than the First Amendment right of the United States Constitution, which guarantees your ability for free speech.
And I mean, and it also pushed the situation up of if a person feel intimidated or threatened during a march, I can get shot. They can use the stand your ground defense. And they get off.
Yeah. Now that was the second thing. I was going to come back around to that because that brings the horrors of Trayvon Martin all the way back around to fruition, right? When we bring this stand your ground law into play. And I am a strong gun advocate, but however, also that doesn't give you the right to go be judge, jury, and executioner to someone else who's exercising their freedom when they haven't crossed boundaries with your protected freedoms, with another
Exactly.
person's protective reasons. So
Now
now
here's
they're
the other thing that comes into play in this. So a lot of things that I named, number one, there's no clear cut definition of what harass or intimidate a person is. There's no clear cut definition of what that is.
so it's left up for private interpretation. So an
Mm-hmm.
agitator can then come and cause the problem. Then the crowd goes to defend themselves, and now the agitator can claim self-defense. Is what you're telling me?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of these things that I have just named
Mm-hmm.
that you can get charged for, there's no clear cut definition of what you're being charged for. So, the causing damage to property or injury to somebody, there's no clear cut definition of that for that.
Too many people stomping on the grass.
You've caused damage to my property. They can haul you off. The main thing, the main important piece to this is RICO liability. RICO liability. RICO liability attaches to anyone who organizes or funds a violent or disorderly assembly. That's the other thing. There's no clear-cut definition to what violent or disorderly is. And all these charges that I've just named has violent or disorderly assembly. You as a person who is against the Black Lives Matter movement, I could be having an assembly, I could be having a march, and because of the fact that you're against the Black Lives Matter movement, you could just consider the very fact that we having the assembly, you could consider that us being disorderly. And because of the fact that I was the person who was the main organizer of the assembly, not only am I being charged whatever charges that's on this piece of law, this bill. Not only am I being charged for those charges, but I can also be hit with RICO charges. The only other people they hit with federal RICO charges is gang members and drug kingpins.
So we're finna apply that level of charge just because you were the organizer of an event and someone felt offended by that event, literally. Now let's go into what is a RICO charge. So tell me about how does that pin you down as an organizer, and what does it limit you to be able to do with your own voice?
RICO charges, in a sense, states that I am organizing a
criminal enterprise.
I'm organizing a criminal enterprise. Yeah, that's literally what it is. Like that's what a RICO charge is. And like I said before, the only people they give RICO charges to is drug lords, drug kingpins, and heads of gangs.
So now we go from local charges to state level charges to federal charges.
Mm-hmm.
All simply because you organized a protest and someone felt intimidated, or you organized a peaceful protest, someone felt intimidated, or an agitator showed up and caused your protest and agitated people, and now you're held liable for the agitator.
Mm-hmm. Other things that are added to this bill is striking a law enforcement officer with any type of projectile during a violent or disorderly assembly. You have to serve a mandatory 6 months. Like, you're not getting out. You have to serve a mandatory 6 months in jail.
In jail. And how do they so, like, I can understand, like, if you throw an egg at an officer, like you assault an officer direct, but now you're saying so how is that effective though? Like how do they even hold someone accountable in general? They can just grab anybody from the audience that they think did a thing without even having full proof. Like I can understand like you doing something stupid. Like if you like you shouldn't just assault people in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
But literally because of the way this law is being worded and there is no clear cut definitions, now anybody can be pulled out.
That's 6 months. That's literally 6 months. Also, a also if a city in the state of Florida wants to reallocate funds from their police department and reallocate those funds to other areas in their city budget, which is affectionately known as defund the police. And this current iteration of the movement for Black Lives, that's known as defund the police. Um, shout out to President Barack Obama. No, that's not a snappy slogan. That's an actual tangible piece of policy that, if it's enacted in the country, could actually benefit Black and brown lives in this country. But he was the first Black president. He's not above. He's above critique.
Nah, he can be critiqued. He can be critiqued for sure.
Like he's first Black president. Of course, he can't be critiqued. You're right. So, yeah, but shout out to Obama for that. So if a city in the state of Florida decides that they want to defund the police, they lose their state funding.
Wow. So
which we all know for city budgets, most of their funding comes from state funding.
Yeah. That's crazy. So if a city wanted to figure out how to take an over budgeted police department and actually, rather than having police officers actually do the work of a social worker, law enforcement, and mental health professional and all of these things, and rather than saying making this one individual who's already overstressed and underpaid do all of these things and decide to actually be progressive and say we want to associate other people, right, with those type of calls and be progressive and address some of the issues. Now their entire budget that they would get from the state is threatened. So now there's no incentive whatsoever for a city to change, make their policies better, other than raising. The only other resolution would then to be to raise taxes to some extreme extent to compensate for the loss from the state.
Exactly.
Which they will never do.
I give you a good example. So this year during the height of the movement for Black Lives, defund the police initiative that was going on across the country, a coalition of organizations here in Pensacola known as the Central Gulf Coast People's Council, we decided to put together a living, tangible document of what defunding the police would look like in the city of Pensacola. It was known as the Pensacola People's Budget.
Mm-hmm.
Memphis has done a people's budget. Jacksonville has done a people's budget. LA has done a people's budget. Atlanta has done a people's budget. So basically it goes like this. This year in the city budget for the city of Pensacola, the city of Pensacola gave the Pensacola Police Department $23.8 million. The city's police budget goes up every year. Every year. I personally know because I've looked at the last 5 city of Pensacola budgets to do research for this people's budget that we put together. Police budget go up every year. And that's how it is in every city in this country. The police budget goes up every year. The military defense budget goes up every year for our country. Like, so why would it be different for the city's police budget to not go up every year for cities across the country? Exactly. So our whole thing was, okay, so we know you giving the Pensacola Police Department, we know you giving them $24 million. So I just rounded it off. I was like, they give them 24. take half of that, take $12 million and reallocate it to these 8 areas in city government and just in the city in general,
mm-hmm.
that would benefit black, brown, and working class people in the city, that would benefit them better. Things like putting more money into your mental health services that y'all have at Lakeview. Because quiet is kept, and it's not even quiet as kept. You can look at the city budget for yourself and know exactly how much they give Lakeview for their mental health services. They give Lakeview $150,000 for their mental health initiative.
That's it, huh?
150 grand. That's all.
Take care of the whole city.
That's literally all. Put some more money into mental health services. Put some more money into parks and recreation. All the community centers that we have in urban communities here in the city. Cobb Center, Fricker Center, Bayview Park. Put some more money into these community centers.
Right.
Had they done that, because we presented, and if they tell you they don't, they lying. Every person that's on city council and the mayor and Lawrence Powell has a copy of that people's budget. All of them have a copy of it. How I know? I personally emailed it to all 9 people. Still got that email sitting in my inbox. And the only person that answered me back was Sherry Myers. Shout out Sherry Myers. But had they done that, had they decided that was something that they would do, mm-hmm. and this bill would have went into law, they would have lost their state funding. The city of Pensacola would have lost their state funding for the city budget.
Wow.
Or for any other thing. It wouldn't even have to be for the city budget. Just any other thing that the city of Pensacola would want to do that requires state funding. Nah, y'all not getting it.
Bridges, roads, all of that type stuff is gone.
You lose your state funding for everything.
Wow.
Period.
That is completely like, it's like, how is it like, your kid, right, takes a cookie from the cookie jar and then you take away, like, you beat them and put them on a 50-year punishment, right, mm-hmm. until they're grown, right? It's like the punishment doesn't fit the crime, and that's probably not the right language, but it's like the result, the reward does not fit the actual action that's actually in place.
Absolutely. Also, if anything happens, if any of those things that you would be charged for on this bill, if any of those things happen and you're sitting in jail, you can't get bail.
Wait, say that again now?
You can't get bail. Like I can read it directly from the bill. No bond or bail until first appearance in court if charged with a crime related to participating in a violent or disorderly assembly. Rebuttable presumption against bond or bail after first appearance.
So literally, you could be at a peaceful protest, exercising your First Amendment right. An agitator shows up. The police can actually hold everybody in that crowd accountable, and you have no access to bail to escape the system.
Oh, and if you're a state, county, or city employee, and you were at a protest and it breaks out into a violent or disorderly assembly, you can lose your job.
Wow. So literally, they are overly punishing anybody who might come up and challenge the system. They're literally taking away the ability of the American who founded this country. Really, in fact, all the tactics that were used to found this country, they're banning now, basically. Mm-hmm. And even for people who do things the correct way or the right way, the ability to just say, I don't like this, and a whole bunch of people to get together and say, we don't like this, and we want you to do something about it. That can literally, everybody could be locked up and just shut away. Mm-hmm. And the way the system is so backed up, you could be in that position for
months, years.
Months, easily.
Mm-hmm. We've stated, so many of us that are organizers and activists, not just in this city, but in this state. We all talk to each other. We all have conversations with each other on a daily basis. We all have said what DeSantis is literally trying to do with this bill is he is literally trying to either quench or completely dissolve the momentum that the Black Lives Matter movement has made in the state of Florida. Like, people have to realize, people have to remember, they have to remember and understand there is no Black Lives Matter movement if George Zimmerman doesn't get acquitted for the murder of Trayvon Martin. So this whole movement actually started. It started in Florida.
Literally.
Like, it started here. And so the momentum that we built in the past 8 going on 9 years since the murder of Trayvon Martin.
That's exactly what it was, a murder.
The momentum that we built, he trying to dead all that. Like, yeah, like he's literally trying to put fear in activists and organizers who we simply just out here just trying to build legitimate Black power. And me and a couple of other people, we was having a conversation one day, and we was like, man, we starting to notice that a lot of people are even afraid to even utter the words Black power. Like, they've given Black power such a negative connotation because you start thinking about Black Panthers, you start thinking about Stokely Carmichael. Like, none of that, like, even in that era, none of that was bad.
Right.
Like, WIC isn't a thing in the United States of America if it's not for the Black Panthers. Free lunch isn't a thing at every school in the United States of America if it's not for the free lunch program that the Black Panthers did, not just in Oakland, but in every city that they had a chapter in this country. Like, subsidized government subsidized healthcare is not a thing if the Black Panthers don't start doing free healthcare programs. And
facts.
Like, we built a lot of stuff. We built a lot of stuff that this country then co-opted and tried to make people think they did. Oh, yeah. We was doing that already. No, y'all weren't. It was not. That absolutely wasn't. And but the victors get to rewrite history. So
So how do we do something about this bill, man? What can be done in particular here in Northwest Florida, right? Number one, but then across the state, what do people need to be doing? I know you mentioned that it's gotten kind of pushed off until the new legislative year, but what should we be doing right now? And then what do we need to be doing in the near future?
We have organizations across the state. Shout out to Dream Defenders, shout out to New Florida Majority, shout out to Florida Immigrant Coalition, New Florida Majority, and Organized Florida. Matter of fact, because they've already made this announcement, so it's not like I'm saying anything that wasn't supposed to be said. New Florida Majority and Organized Florida have actually merged. They've merged into one organization. It's called Florida Rising. So shout out to Florida Rising as well. But that doesn't go into effect until January 1st of next year. But all these organizations, shout out to Jacksonville Community Action Committee and Tallahassee Community Action Committee. Those two organizations, plus Dream Defenders, plus New Florida Majority, are the organizations that's bringing to light this egregious, draconian, and outright fascist bill. Like this, like we talk about fascism as being a really, really, really bad thing that can destroy the very, very sense of democracy in this country. But we like, I promise you, we haven't seen fascism yet in the United States of America. But the seeds of fascism were attempting to be planted when Donald Trump became president of the United States. The seeds of fascism have always been in this country, but they started to get like water and cultivated when Donald Trump became president of the United States. Because what happens is all of the governors that align with Donald Trump, you've now given them the green light to just do whatever.
Yeah.
DeSantis aligns with Donald Trump. You gave DeSantis the green light to think he can put this trash bill on a piece of paper and say, "Hey, let's pass this." Brian Kemp aligns with Donald Trump. Y'all gave Brian Kemp the green light to not only run for governor in 2018, but still be the Secretary of State in the state of Georgia. Secretary of State in the state of Georgia. Let's be clear. The Secretary of State in the state of Georgia runs the elections. So y'all gave him the green light to be the player and the referee for his own election that he won.
Yeah.
And we're not supposed to think that there wasn't some sort of voter suppression and voter fraud
that was happening.
We now understand here in Florida that there are steps that need to be taken in order for this to not be a thing. There's also another initiative that we're trying to push here in the state of Florida. It's called Repeal Leo Bore. So Leo Bore is the Law Enforcement Officer's Bill of Rights. It's a Florida statute that's on the Florida State Constitution that basically gives law enforcement officers more power than any other person in the state simply because they wear a badge. They have more power and more authority than any other person in the state simply because they wear a badge. The reason that repealing Leo Bore should be a thing in the state of Florida. So here in Pensacola, we have a civilian accountability board. It just started this year. Just started this year.
And we're only talking about the city, not even at the county level, only in the city.
Just in the city. That board has absolutely no power. It has no power at all.
Really?
And the reason that it doesn't have any power is because of this statute. They don't have any subpoena power. They can't determine what officers get hired and fired. Any type of changes or amendments that they want to make. Like, for example, one of the things that we want to do here in the city of Pensacola is deprioritize low-level drug offenses. The whole civilian oversight committee voted on that, and they voted in favor of deprioritizing low-level drug offenses. Still doesn't matter, because now it has to go to it has to actually go to city council, and city council got to vote on it. And if city council votes against it,
it won't happen.
Doesn't matter.
Now, the city council writes the statutes that the local police department follows, or is it the mayor that controls that?
Once the city council votes in favor of that, then it goes to the mayor, and the mayor has to sign off, on it.
Okay.
But they can vote on it to where the city council can vote on it, because other city councils have done it across the country. They can vote on it to where it can be veto proof. So even if the mayor vetoes it, it can still go into law.
Gotcha.
If they vote enough for it to be veto proof. So,
gotcha.
Yeah. But that board doesn't have any real tangible power, and it's because of that law enforcement officer's Bill of Rights. So, I mean, these are things that are on the books here in the state, or they are attempting with this bill that DeSantis has to put on the books in the state that limits the power that we have as Black people in this state.
Yeah, it puts limits on the ability to assembly, to exercise our voice, to exercise our power.
Yeah. Literally. And I have personally made a promise, and there are many other organizers in the state that have made that same promise. I personally made a promise to help regain or establish Black power in the state of Florida. Black political power, Black organizing power, Black economic power. I have made a promise to establish or regain Black power in this state.
Bro, thank you so much for hanging out with us today.
Absolutely.
In fact, let me ask you a quick question then. You running for office? Is that what I heard?
We're gonna cross that bridge when we get there. We're gonna cross that bridge when we get there. It's talks.
We'll leave it there. We'll leave it there.
We having discussions, but we'll cross the bridge when we get there.
Yeah, don't put them all out there. Don't put all your cards out there for everybody.
Absolutely.
But thank you for coming and keeping us, the people, informed what's happening with the laws, with politics as they are happening, with the cute baby there, keeping us up to date with the cute baby. Right. Thank you for keeping us up to date. And then come and visit back with us from time to time and let us know, right? Bring the team, right? Keep us in the loop about not only what's happening between Pensacola and Panama, but what's happening in the rest of the state that we may be disconnected from, right? Being way over here in the Panhandle, we almost like closer to Alabama than we are the rest of Florida. But we want to stay in tune with what's happening in our state and in our region and make sure that the power that we have, the ability to enact change, that was seen all throughout the earlier part of this year, right down at Graffiti Bridge. Yeah, we want that to continue and to continue moving, right?
Absolutely.
So, thank you all for hanging out with us on this impromptu interview with Jamal Steele, aka Jamil Davis, aka the activist, aka all the other things that we talked about earlier.
Everything, all the things, all the things. Oh, and quick informal announcement. Me and Chris behind closed doors. We gonna pan this thing out and fix and tweak these things. Expect a podcast of some form from me and possibly somebody else. We'll keep that on the low. But expect a podcast, and maybe a solo podcast or a duo podcast. But it'll have me in some iteration, and it'll be brought to y'all through Bantu Cola. Expect that 2021, like solid 2021. So,
we're bringing it.
Like we're gonna make that. Like we definitely gonna make that happen.
Follow, tag, share, do them things because it's coming. Right, we got the platform and we building, right? Economic power, political power, health, mental power, right? Black power in varying degrees and forms, and most importantly, Black love. We're gonna take care of ourselves and our neighborhoods and our peeps, right? I ain't worried about everybody else. I'm worried about us.
Absolutely.
With that being said, we out.
We out.